All right. Hello, and thank you for joining this live webinar hosted by TownNews and spotlighting its News Nirvana program that is partnering with online publishers and editors to launch hyperlocal news websites in underserved media communities in the United States. My name is Rick Rogers, Chief Revenue Officer with TownNews, and I will serve as your host for today's webinar. And joining me is our good friend and local news entrepreneur, Nick Parker. I like that entrepreneur title.
I know. It's a word I ran away from for a while.
Well, Nick, we're really happy that you're joining us, and we're really looking forward to sharing your story. And Nick is the founder of Link to Lee Summit, a news organization that provides coverage of Lee Summit, Missouri, a suburb of Kansas City. Nick, before we share your story on how your background and passion for all things Lee Summit led you to the creation of your media company, the launch of your website on News Nirvana, and your plans for the future. Now, let me start by bringing those listening to this webinar, and again, thank you for joining us, up to speed on who we are at TownNews and what is News Nirvana. TownNews is the engine behind more than 2,000 local media websites in North America. We serve traditional newspapers, magazines, broadcast television and radio stations, and digital-only media organizations like Nick's. At the core of our products and services are our content management systems, both our proprietary Block CMS system, which is what powers News Nirvana sites today, but we also have a WordPress-based Rails CMS. And what makes partnering with TownNews unique is that we're a full stack solution for not only the newsroom tools and the website hosting, but also for advertising revenue programs and audience and subscriber management tools that are so important today as you look to monetize your content with your audience. Our mission is simple. TownNews equips local media organizations with the digital services and guidance to transform their business needs and flourish in the digital age. We want to help you remain relevant in the communities you serve and with the audience that you seek to connect with. And the evolution of this mission is the topic for today's webinar, News Nirvana, our digital solution that you can use to bring a news website to life. News Nirvana is a news incubator program that will provide media partners with a mobile optimized website powered by our cutting edge Blocks content management system. Our goal with News Nirvana is to address the problem of news deserts by partnering with community news professionals like Nick or you, hopefully soon, and help launch hyperlocal digital news organizations in unserved or underserved media markets. We identify news deserts, find capable publishers, and provide them with the free tools, resources, and consulting to make their digital news initiative a success. As a News Nirvana partner, you get a dedicated subdomain, a targeted programmatic advertising solution to monetize your website on day one. You keep 100% of your local ad revenue. You have access to a subscription and contribution program to audience revenue, content from TownNews and other News Nirvana partners, and I think most importantly, consultation with the TownNews team. We want to see our News Nirvana partners succeed. This is a very young program, launched in 2020 and really kind of accelerated by the pandemic. And there are 5 local news websites today powered by News Nirvana. And the first site to go live was Link to Lee Summit, owned and operated by our guest, Nick Parker. Joining Nick's operation are websites powering local news now in Indiana, New York, and California. So Nick, let's dive into your story. Enough about me talking. We want to know why you started Link to Lee Summit, the content you focus on, and how News Nirvana has helped you. So Nick, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is fun. It's
Great.
weird being on the other side. I usually am a podcast host, so the other side of the table is weird.
I know. Well, you'll get used to it. I think this will be fun.
I'm not in control. I don't like that.
I like control, so I'm actually happy. So, hey, for our audience, give us a little background of, give us your background. And, while Link to Lead Summit is just a few years old, you are not new to the news business at all.
No, I've either been in the news or worked with the media for my entire professional career. So 25 years or more. I don't like to count how old we actually are now. I got out of news when a lot of people did in 2008, and I went into corporate marketing for a while. And when I got out of that and went out on my own, Rick, I embraced that word, that weird, horrible, scary word, entrepreneur. I realized how much I missed news, and I missed in our community. While there is news, there are news organizations. They aren't really doing the job, and so I really started Link to Lead Summit more as a hobby and therapy, to make myself write again, to make myself cover things. And what I quickly found as I would hit the coffee shop, people were reading what I was writing, and people were taking note of what was going on. And from there, from what started as, hey, I'm just going to cover economic development in the area, I'm just going to talk about local business and what's happening in that industry. Because of the way people took note, it's now grown into we covered the city, we covered the local school district and the private schools in the area. We talk about economic development, and we hit a little bit of all, and we focus a lot on features and talking about the people who make this community what it is.
And when did that start? What year did you start this?
It started in 2016. And then I added a podcast component in March of 2017. And the podcast really, that digital content part has really become the focus of what we do. It's now a 3-day-a-week podcast.
And we're going to talk a little bit about your content strategy, because I think it is quite unique. But you're a one-man band. Now, talk about who's working. And I know that you partner with some content creators in the community, but this is about as grassroots as it gets.
No, I actually feel like I'm about 20 years old again, and that those first jobs in small communities, right, where the editorial department is one and you do everything. Yeah, I go out and collect the news. I don't know, is this audience mostly publishers, news people? It's a
mix. It's a mix. Yeah, absolutely.
So look, I will admit this, and Rick, you know me well enough. I avoid the advertising side as much as possible. I am the old newsman, so I'm not as good at that part of it. But yeah, I do all the news gathering myself. I host and produce the podcast, and then when I feel confident enough, I go out and try to get advertisers to help supplement what's going. And really, the advertising part of it, I think, is where I will really give praise and thanks to the News Nirvana program, because this new website has really helped me offer a revenue product that can help.
It's fantastic. So Lee Summit is part of the Kansas City DMA. It's a suburb. It is kind of a small town though, and it has a small town feel. Talk a little bit about the community.
Yeah, we're a small town of 100,000 people. It is. It's weird. We have a lot of people, but it's a bedroom community for the most part. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a large percentage of our population does not work here in Lee Summit. So they get up in the mornings, commute into Kansas City or other surrounding areas. They work and they come home to be with their families and to play. That's changing. There's a lot of push for that, more development of getting people to work here. And we're not, I think probably, Rick, when you guys created the News Nirvana program, you were looking at news deserts that were not what we are here in Lee Summit. There is a print product here in town. There is the Kansas City Star that covers the metro area. There are, 4 local TV stations that cover the metro area. But what happened was none of them were actually doing the job. And the metro things, they only come in when there's a big story, right? And our local print product wasn't doing the job anymore. And so it's kind of opened an opportunity for me. I guess that's where the entrepreneur part comes in, is I saw a news gap, that stories weren't being told. And I was the editor of a paper that is now almost non-existent in town. So I know what it used to be, and I know what news in this town could be. And so that's the opportunity that I've really tried to feel. But we're mostly, like I said, we're 100,000 people thereabouts. It's a pretty affluent community. So there's a lot to cover, a lot of stories to tell.
Well, and you bring up a good point. I mean, the News Nirvana program, while it is a program that can address underserved, unserved media markets or news deserts. It also can serve underserved in terms of, there may be a situation where there isn't a viable product anymore, or the product there is maybe not doing the job. So, could a partner like you, which you've done, fill that gap? What's been the reaction? You started in 2016, so you're nearing the 5-year anniversary. What's been the reaction?
Wow, I haven't actually thought about that. 5 years. That's actually a good milestone.
Marketing opportunity, Nick. Marketing opportunity.
Actually, it's been really good, and I will say this, Rick. This is where I am most proud. When I was editor of the former paper, back in I was there 99 to 2005. In our heyday, we were pushing 6,000 circulation. My reach now, between the podcast and the website and my newsletter, I'm hitting right about those same numbers in my audience reach. So I think that's pretty good. And the like I said, the print product that exists, their subscriptions are under 1,000. So compared to 100,000 town, yeah, sure, maybe it's not awesome, but I'm hitting those numbers that we at least used to hit when we were at the old print product. So I think it's good. What I like to look at though too is included in that audience are a lot of, I guess you would say, the people in the community that are kind of doing things and getting things done. My mailing list, because I started Link to Lee Summit as a business and economic development focus, my mailing list began as mostly if you owned or managed a business in town, you were on my list. I built that myself, hitting the streets really. And find that. So that's a lot. That helped me, I think, really get that reach started. And now in the last, I'd say, year and a half, really starting to hit more of the outer parts of that community list. Your content strategy. So you started as a business directory as a way, and that's why I think the name Link to Lee Summit came out, because you were trying to link businesses together. And then I built a search directory app, and I learned in the first year that you can't compete with Google. So that didn't last long, but yeah, that's exactly how I started. And then about a year later, I would say that you were an early adopter into the audio content podcast world. And now it seems like everybody, including, grandmas and folks, everybody has a podcast now, it seems like. So you were early, and, that is kind of that's your main content focus is podcasting. Let's talk a little bit about why go that route, and then how has it evolved in the 3 years you've been doing it? Well, first, I will tell you how it started. You mentioned earlier that I have some other partners kind of that are contributing written content. I have some guest columnists. I have there's a man in town who is he's now retired, but a former minister in town, and he had been here 40 or 50 years. And for 35 years, he had submitted to the weekly newspaper a poem that he wrote. He's a poet. And a year and a half ago, he came to me. We were just talking. And he says, I want to move. I want to come to you. But can I do it? Can I read them? I've never been able to read my own poetry. And so he comes into the studio, or he did before the pandemic forced me to close the studio. He comes into the studio and he records every week his own poetry, and we put that in. So I have those. And then the story of the podcast is there is another friend of mine in town who's incredibly smart, very articulate, and he wrote a column for me right before one of the local elections. And I took him out for drinks at a local microbrewery and was trying to convince him that he needed to do it every week. And as happens, Rick, when you are having drinks, weird ideas come out. He flat out refused to write every week. And by the end of the night, it was, hey, let's start a podcast. Nobody else, none of us have ever done that before. And so we did. And we were lucky enough that at the time we launched it, there was some, I think it's, this is local media people, so they get it. There was some drama happening in city council and during an election. And because that was part of the content as we opened it, it really let us sink our hooks into a couple of topics and really build an audience. And within months, I would say within 3 months, we were at 1,200 listeners every time. Wow. Every episode. And like I said, we're now about 5,300 every week. So that's kind of how it got started. And then as it built up, I realized that there was a new way. This was a new way to tell stories and to do it differently. There is a print product in town. Like I said, it's a weekly print, but their subscriptions are diving and continue to dive. And so as I looked around, I was like, how can I do this differently? How can I reach people where they are? If people aren't going to spend the even whatever it is, $90 a year to get the print product, what are they going to do? Where are they going to get their news? And I found that they liked this idea, and it's grown. And now I do on Mondays, there's a 2 or 3 minute episode of the podcast that's just, here's some headlines, here's things coming up this week, something for you to know. And then Wednesday is that kind of original podcast. And really where we found our niche in that was, yeah, we're going to talk about the news, but it's really, here are the 1 or 3 hot topics, big things that everybody in town is talking about. And we kind of dive in, and I have a co-host for it. And we'd add in some analysis and some conversation in that. And then we take time to bring somebody in and kind of deep dive into those topics and make more of a conversation out of that thing that everybody's talking about in town.
And the way to take the NPR model and bring it really hyper local down to your community. And this is something, and just really quickly, if you can, I mean, you have, obviously your audio probably sounds much more wonderful than mine. You have the microphone, you have the equipment. I mean, there is some investment in the technology side of it, but really this can be done in any community. And, you're selling sponsorships so that you are bringing in some revenue as well. But, this isn't a heavy lift to do. It's just,
No, it's actually pretty easy. And we started with, I bought a mic to plug into my iPad. That's how I started. And it was me, a co-host, and a guest would sit around one microphone. And yeah, the audio wasn't great, but as I did it, I was able to, when I felt like I earned it, I would buy a new piece of equipment. And then it's got up to, like I said, we ended up building a studio in a co-working space here in town. I've moved most of the equipment here to my home office the last 10 or 11 months. It doesn't sound as good here at home. I'm in a 115-year-old plaster wall house, but the nice thing is everybody's used to video chat quality sound right now. So yeah. It hasn't hurt, but really this is a different model. I mean, I think everybody is looking at newspapers now, every one of us that's in the business, and we do the math, and it's harder and harder to follow the old model. The thing that was successful even 15 or 20 years ago is really difficult. And I have used this as kind of a way for me to dig in and discover what's the new model. How can we make that work? And yeah, I'm a one-man show, and some of it is just because I'm still figuring that out. But I'm going to tell you this. Look, Rick, I have a number. It's on my glass board across the wall here. I have a number. If I can hit that in 6 months, I'm bringing in a reporter.
That's fantastic.
So,
and there are a lot of folks who are going to listen to this that are, a one-person operation or a 3-person operation. I mean, the Lion organization, I mean, that is, local, independent, online news. I mean, there are a lot of folks who are going to listen to this or are listening that started where you're at, or maybe still where you're at, but have grown, hopefully. So the evolution, I think the story is great. Starts in 16, business directory, you look at audio content. Well, first off, you saw a need in the community for better, local news. Starts audio content. Now let's pivot to the website side. So I know you started with, I think, just a site on Wix or a platform that was.
Yeah, I started with Squarespace.
Yeah. Okay, Squarespace. Okay.
And look, it's beautiful. Their templates are beautiful, but they're made for bloggers. They're made for, I'm going to sell t-shirts, right? And it's great for that thing or other small businesses you start, but it's not a news site. You can find ways to put ads on there, but it's not easy. And it takes a lot of work. So yeah. So when I heard about this project, it's geared, it's made for news. It's made as a way to deliver news. It's made as a way to generate revenue. This was a no-brainer to jump on board.
So, what we did, so when Nick and we started approaching and, using, Nick as the first site to launch with News Nirvana, we provide Nick with a templated site. And to Nick's point, it is made for news content delivery, up to 6 sections, ad positions, programmatic ad network to be able to monetize a site day one, of which Nick, it's a 50-50 split on programmatic, but Nick, 100% of what he sells locally, as well as if you wanted to do subscriptions or start, paying or charging for access to your content, you would keep, as the News Nirvana partner, 100% of. There is a fee for those services in terms of the platform, but the revenue you would generate, you would keep 100% of as well. You've now been on the platform, Nick, for several months.
I think July is when we launched.
I think July is when we launched. You were the first one to go. Did you get feedback from the community? How has it been so far? Are you pleased with the results of the transition?
I think I'm going to put this way. There were a handful of people who noticed day one, who not only noticed, hey, new, great looking new site, right? It just looked good. But there were a handful that right off the bat were like, oh, that's easy for me to get to the news, to see the things I want. I will tell you, I have a core handful of sponsors and advertisers here in town that have been behind me since I began, and they are fantastic. But even they were like, they noticed the difference in how their advertising was presented. And so that made a big, big difference for them. And I'll tell you, since then, Rick, I've been able to raise rates because I feel like there is a difference in how I am presenting their ads to the community through it. So, it's not just I put an image in a news store, in a blog post or an image on a page and call it advertising. This is actual advertising on a website that we can track. We can see what kind of traction they're getting. We can move things around. Some of them are dynamic. I love the reveal ad at top. There's a local bed and breakfast that even during the pandemic, when she can't get business because of local mandates and guidelines, she has kept her ad in our top reveal spot because she feels like it builds her brand and it's worth doing. And the funny story is now her business now the last 8 months has been families who come into town for funerals, but they can't actually go into the funeral because of capacity reasons. So she'll get 4 or 5 people that rent the bed and breakfast and stay there to watch a feed.
Really? Wow. That's amazing.
And that's how her business has changed. But I think the value, the point of the story is, Rick, is the value of having for me, a website that's built intentionally for news delivery, for advertising delivery, game changer for me.
And again, no platform cost. I mean, what is different with the traditional, TownNews site is that there would be a monthly SaaS fee tied to the website, tied to the hosting. We're able to provide the News Nirvana incubator program at no platform cost. Now, as Nick knows, there are some limitations as to, the site is templated, up to 6 sections. We build in some really good ad positions. The goal here is you follow the evolution of Nick's story is he went from a Squarespace site that wasn't really fitting his needs for growth. He's now transitioned to a News Nirvana site. And I know you and I have talked. The goal is as you continue to grow, you may outgrow the News Nirvana platform and actually grow into a full TownNews media site with full access to the tools and resources that are available, right? That's really where you want to go.
That's absolutely the goal. And I think you used the right word earlier. This is where I'm going to use again that because I'm an entrepreneur, I've learned a lot of these things. But you used incubator, and I think that's exactly what it is here's a place to get in. It's almost like a co-working space where I built my studio, where you get in and you get exit, but it just gives you the tools you need to take it to the next level. And absolutely. I've already eyeballed kind of a few services or things I'd like to add that when I get to a certain point, I can pay to get those in and expand what that site does for me. And again, I just think the intentionality of the service of the site that you guys provide is just such a big difference for me because I was kind of, I was hacking everything, right? I was just trying to take a templated Squarespace site and make it work for what I wanted to do, but I really couldn't do it. And now I've got a delivery tool that does it, and it lets me do this without a print product. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I told you, I think my whole goal really is to figure this figure this model out. And so this helps me do that.
You talked about, consultative services and the support behind the scenes as well. There are many times where, you'll text me and say, hey, I'm having trouble loading this ad, or I need help with Google Ad Manager. The nice thing about
it's usually always about Ad Manager. And
it's actually always about, right? It is always, I wasn't going to throw that out there. But the good news is, there's a team at TownNews that can help you do exactly what you need, and you're not on an island, right? I think that's
I bug you because it's fun, but I actually do have somebody with the Google Ad team that helps me out, and she's awesome. Will usually get back to me within 30, 40 minutes. Sometimes it's here's what you need to do, and sometimes it's, hey, it's okay, I fixed it for you. So very, very helpful. I find, just because of the way my brain works, I've found it a little hard to get used to Google Ad Manager, just because I've never done it before, and I'm not so much with the smarts on that kind of thing. But she's been great. It's a good team, and being able to actually track the traffic on those ads, and to really monetize sponsorship has been a difference. And that's why I've got the number on my board over there. That's, when I hit that, I'm going to hire a reporter. I'm going to have somebody who goes out and adds, you said I was doing it different because I wasn't having the traditional, here's a story and here's a photo. Well, I'm going to go add that. I think that's a piece that is still missing, is some of that traditional news reporting, figuring out a way to get there now.
So you have a number on the board. I mean, what is your goal in 5 years? I mean, you talked about, you started this and it was a quote unquote hobby, but it's not. It's safe to say this is not a hobby anymore.
No, it was. It was a hobby. It was
Yes.
a hobby business. And look, and I'm going to be honest. I pay most of my bills. I have another business practice that is content creation. Because of what I did here, though, one of my businesses is I'm a podcast producer. I produce about 8 other podcasts, building that up. But literally, it began as a hobby business. It no longer is. And I was able to start really making that transition. I would say probably 18 months ago is when I stopped saying that joke. And then it really changed in July when we were able to change the website. And I know you and I have been talking. I've been bugging you kind of for a while, just as a sounding board, like how can I do this? And then when you came up with the Nirvana program, it was perfect. So my goal, look, if I can add, I'm going to tell you right now, I have 5 ad slots that I want to fill. And if I fill that, I bring in a reporter. That's the number. So in 5 years, I want to have that other piece where there's a regular reporter doing traditional coverage of City Hall, of our local school district, that can then really complement what we're doing with the other stuff, which is the podcast, which is video. You didn't even talk about the video part of your website service, which is great, that I can add in video really easily.
Yeah,
that is increased traffic.
Yeah. Yep.
I put video of every podcast we do. And if for no other reason, Google owns YouTube. So put it on YouTube and help your search.
Yeah, absolutely. Newsnirvana.com is where you can see the entire platform. It's a great look too at the design of the site, along with Link to Lee Summit. We encourage you, if you have any interest to learn more about this program, please click that link. There's a simple form to apply. Tell TownNews your story, how you might think News Nirvana might be a good program for you. We'll be in touch with you to discuss, to make sure that it kind of, News Nirvana is the right fit for where you want to go. I would also encourage you to check out some of the other sites as well. There is a partners page on newsnirvana.com. We have a partner in Yosemite, California. We have a partner in Nuvo, which is a great partner in Indianapolis, which is an alt weekly that actually, due to the pandemic, was forced to shutter. But once they heard of News Nirvana, this was a way that they could remain open and serving their community via digital in a way that would be at a lower cost point for them. So we were really proud to keep Nuvo delivering content to their partners through the News Nirvana program.
And Rick, I don't know if it's appropriate. They can always reach out to me as well. I would be happy to talk a little bit about what I've done with it.
That would be fantastic. No, absolutely. Do you want to share your contact information real quick?
Sure. It's linktoleesummit.com. That's the number 2 is our website. And my email is nick@linktoleesummit.com. And I'd be more than happy to answer questions about what I'm doing with Nirvana program and even where I'm learning, because I'm still figuring it out. I mean, I think just last week I probably emailed or texted with a question of like, how do I do this? So I'm still figuring it out, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I will also preach the gospel of podcasting for local news. I think it is a huge tool, and it's easy. It's easy to get into.
Well, one of the great things that you'll find about, the Line organization is that they are a very connected group. They all have the same mission in mind, which is, delivering quality local online, independent journalism to the markets they serve. So I'm sure you'll get hopefully some great questions and great feedback from them. I have a few more questions to ask of you. So one of the questions I have, because this is a question that we typically get from a News Nirvana partner or someone who is interested, is, should I be concerned about having national programmatic ads on my site? Part of what we do offer at TownNews is the ability to provide, ad inventory fill day one through our programmatic network. TownNews powers programmatic advertising on about 800 sites throughout our customer base. I'll share with you, in December, we generated, on behalf of our media partners who are in the program, over $400,000 in revenue that went straight to the media partner with our programmatic ad network. Nick, was there ever any concern about having an ad from Geico or, programmatic ads on your site?
I'll be honest. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you when I was talking about the podcast earlier, you talked about how like I really focus in. We are very hyper local. The most I will do outside of our town is I might every once in a while during election season, I might talk about the county legislature election, or if there is something at the state level that affects our backyard. But our focus is really in Lee Summit. And we do that. The intention of everything we do is that you, as a reader, as a listener, you have more power to affect change in your backyard than you do anywhere else. Right? So we want informed citizens. So yeah, I totally, when you first told me about it, I'm like, national ads. I don't know. I've had not a single person say anything to me about it. My wife even told me I was silly for worrying about it.
Yeah.
I think,
right. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Look, my wife is always right. Yeah, I think too. The other thing you have to remember, and this was, I can't remember if this was something she told me or if another friend told me. You have to remember is we're all used to those ads, right? I mean, every interaction we have online has some kind of component now to marketing and advertising. So I think people are used to it. I think we get, as local news people, we get a little hypersensitive about something getting in the way of our local focus. I think it's the same thing about people in their local downtowns. They don't want a chain business to come in. They want all mom and pop shops.
Sure.
I think that's a similar analogy. But what I've found is when done right, when put in the right spots, it does nothing but add to the service. They are not intrusive. My ad positions that I sell are still the best ad spots on the site, so I like that. But no, I haven't had a single person complain.
Well, and you made a few points there at the end, I think, that are very important to touch on, is that the dynamic ad positions at the top, the reveal ad, the sticky anchor ad, those are 100% local. Programmatic ads never go in there. That is for our local partners to sell. And that is high dollar inventory. Final thing is, you can control, if you're concerned about an ad coming into a category, maybe you sell a sponsor to an insurance agent, and that's a State Farm agent. You can work with our partners, and we can kind of blacklist certain categories or advertisers to make sure that you don't have any conflict.
Yeah. And I think that was something we dealt with right off the bat. I think there was, I can't remember if it was a position or an industry or something, but it was a call, and 15 minutes later it was fixed.
I have a few more questions, but do we have any questions in the chat that we want to make sure and cover with Nick?
We do have one question in there. I think you pretty much touched on it, but you may have more to add. Can you share a little bit more about the consulting and support that TownNews provides to News Nirvana publishers and reporters?
So one of the things with TownNews is that we offer free training. So and we offer project management. So we will work with you to launch your site, within the News Nirvana program format. But then we'll also set up training sessions with your reporters, with your staff, to make sure that they can manage the site. They can upload and manage content, understand how to maybe move blocks on the page around. And then also the ad management side. So Nick mentioned this. So basically, we offer the support to show you how to manage your local ad inventory and monetize your site as well. So full support included in the program, no extra cost. It's just what we do to help you.
Very responsive. That's the big thing. I think,
Nick, you mentioned your branded podcasting. And I think this is an opportunity for local media sites to think outside the box with branded content. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're doing for the podcast you're producing and what types of content they are and how that's going and how you got started?
Yeah, well, it got started just really a couple people here, different people locally had been listening, and they were like, I want to do that for my business. I want to have a podcast. The first one I had is a man who owns a local boutique gym. He's an athletic trainer and gym owner, and we've done, I think, for 2.5 years now, a podcast for him. He's local, so he can just come into the studio, or lately we've done it remote. There are lots of services to help you with that. And then, another one that we do is there's a podcast called Beers with Nigel. It's a craft beer focused podcast, and it's just about that industry. But it's been fun because it's not just local, so it lets me play a little bit. I get to co-host with that as well. But really, the whole idea there is that podcasting is about access. So it's not just that I'm a thought leader or an industry expert on something. It's you're providing access into that topic, into that world, or whatever it is. So what I do is if someone has a topic, a niche they want to talk about, it is I work with them to do all the hard stuff, all the deep technical things of editing and feeding to the hosts and all of the different apps, and do this so they can really get their messaging out for their business, or just go get the guests, so that, Rick, if you were doing one, you have access to all of these people in Lion, in other associations in the industry, or news people that you get to talk to around the country that not all of us do. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing there is building your brand and building your personal brand too, as an expert in that area, by giving listeners access. But you don't want to do it because you don't want to make all the decisions and think about buying all the things and what do you have to do to actually get that piece out there. And so what I've figured out is a way to take all that out of it so that somebody just has to show up and talk.
Awesome. And I'm super jealous about the craft beer podcast. That is a genius move on your part. We
just went international. I have now had 2 guests from England.
Oh, that's a very creative way to work and drink beer at the same time.
It's a hard job. It's a really hard job.
Well, before we wrap up, Aaron, any other questions in the chat room or any other questions for Nick or myself?
We did have one more question come in. What is the strategy on the News Nirvana side on which locations and sites to support and encourage?
Okay, so location-wise, really we're open to any location in the country, in the U.S. right now. Again, we're it's really meant to partner with either underserved or unserved media markets. And part of the application process is that, we'll review your application, the executive team at TownNews. We will, talk with you about what your goals and objectives are. We'll look at the market. We do need to, make sure in some cases there may be a competing TownNews publication that it may not be a good fit for the program. But we are definitely open to talking to anybody. Absolutely. So I would encourage you, newsnirvana.com. There's an application button right there. Please do, if you're interested, please do apply. Again, linktaleesummit.com is Nick Parker's website. It's a great example of what you can do with the News Nirvana program. And Nick, I can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, your story is a great one to tell. I know there's a lot of stories like yours within the Lion organization. And, we're really looking to, be able to use the News Nirvana program as an incubator to allow folks like you to start up their own digital media business. And we know there's a lot of communities out there that are unserved or underserved that I think this could be a great solution for. So thank you very much for joining. One of the last things I definitely want to share with you is, along with our News Nirvana program at TownNews, we are very focused in 2021 about helping our partners increase subscription revenue and audience revenue. So I would encourage you to take a few moments to look at our townnews.com website, and under the solutions page, you'll see IQ Audience Plus. But what we have done, much like our programmatic ad program, is that we have tied our data management platform with subscription tools that TownNews provides to be able to provide a smart meter to our media partners that can create really dynamic and unique user journeys for folks who are not subscribed to your product to subscribe. So we can send targeted subscription messages based on an audience profile. I am a big sports nut. I'm a sports junkie. So we can, because of my behaviors on news websites, which typically many times lead to a sports section, I would be identified as a sports enthusiast. Therefore, IQ Audience Plus, if on a local website, would then hopefully deliver me hey, for all the latest sports news, here's an offer for you to subscribe. We can also create unique journeys where after 2 visits, they get a registration link to register. And then they get 2 more free visits, and then sign up for this newsletter, 2 more free visits, then subscribe. So it is really taking the TownNews subscription pro service to the next level by layering in our data management platform to provide a whole new sophisticated level of subscription technology with TownNews IQ Audience Plus. There's a lot of information you can seek on our website at townnews.com. Look under the Solutions tab, look for IQ Audience Plus, and we'd love to, if someone is interested to learn more about that, we would love to talk with you as well. Again, my name's Rick Rogers, Chief Revenue Officer with TownNews. My email is rrogers, RROGERS @townnews.com. TownNews is really proud to support the Lion organization. We love your mission. We are all about local news. And if there's anything we can do to help any Lion member, please do not hesitate to reach out. Nick, thank you. Thanks for being a partner. Thanks for doing this. And hope to talk to everybody soon. Thanks.
Thanks.